going on, guys? So today we've got we're going to do a review on the ZLX-12P. We've been using the ZLX-12s now for probably 3 or 4 years. I figured the best time to do a review on a speaker would be after I've been using it for quite a while. I didn't want to put a review up right after you buy it because you haven't used it out in the field, you haven't worked with it for a while. So I know there's a ton of YouTube reviews out there on the ZLX-12Ps already. Not too many of them though are after being used for years. A lot of them are, oh yeah, I unboxed it, I used it at 1 gig and it was awesome. I feel like an accurate review isn't an accurate review unless you've used it for quite a while. So like I said, these ones we've had now for 3 or 4 years. We've used them heavily, and overall impression is we love them. So I'm going to take you through some of the features of the ZLX, why we like it so much, and even though they've been out for many years now, there's a bunch of new models out as well. But the ZLX-12P is still offered, and why I recommend it over some of the other ones. So let's take a look at the unit itself, and we'll get started. So here's a real quick view of the ZLX-12P and its case. This is almost a canvas case. They are pretty tough. It's got a decent bit of padding in it, but we'll go ahead and take it out and show you the case itself. The case is pretty stiff. It's a decent material. It's kind of slick on the inside, so it's not real hard to get in and out. This model of the case has the Velcro on it. Just makes it a little bit easier to get on and off the speaker itself. And of course on the side it has a carrying pouch that you could stick a power cable or maybe an XLR cable in as well. But good cases, they're not going to rip. I mean, this is a really heavy canvas. It's I haven't had any problems with them in the past 4 years, so I don't imagine that these are gonna be ripping on you. They're not as padded as I would want. I mean, they do have some padding, but I've seen more padded cases. I guess making it more padded would be harder to work with, but for now, these are great. They've protected them pretty good. As you'll see here in a minute, this one has been well used, and it would be even worse without the case. I can tell you that much for sure. So taking a look at the speaker itself, it's a pretty good looking speaker, other than the kind of junk I have on this one, but it's a pretty good looking speaker. Nice black metal mesh grill there with a sub grill or sub mesh underneath it. EV logo down at the bottom, and of course right underneath the EV logo is the light. That light is adjustable. We'll turn it on for you here in a minute. The light is adjustable as to what it can do. By default, it's a power light, so when the speaker is on, that light is lit. The other modes it can do are limit light, which we've used that in the past as well. So the light is off under normal circumstances, and then if the speaker hits audio limit, it will light up. So if you have them across the room or suspended in the ceiling, something like that, you can tell if you are limiting the speaker by the flash of that light. So it can give you a good indication from somewhere else. The only other option is to just leave the light off all the time, which some people might like as well. So moving to the side of the speaker, this is one of the two sides, obviously. So this side here has a carry handle. As you can see, I have 2 screws missing here. I'll explain that later. I took those screws out for a reason, but I will eventually replace those. I can't find these exact same screws. I haven't contacted EV about that yet, but I haven't found the exact same screws. But I have no problem going to Lowe's and finding a similar panhead screw that I can put in there. The issue with them being 2 open holes right there is those holes go completely into the enclosure itself, and while you're using that, you can hear air coming in and out of those holes. That's not a real big deal. You don't hear it unless you're like right up against it, but it does bother me, and I do want to put those in there. I don't typically use the side carry handle very much, so that's why I don't have the screws, both screws in on that one. I use the top and bottom handles. You can see, I'll turn it around here a little bit more. You can see the monitor wedge pads. So if you are using this as a monitor wedge, this angle is excellent, and the pads here just help give it a little extra stability as well. So if I put it down here, this is the it's the monitor wedge angle there. Looks great, works great. I've used them many times as monitors without any issue. And the pads help keep them nice and stable. Here's the back of the speaker itself. On the top here we have the display with the master knob here. Both the knob clicks and, of course, as a rotary encoder, spins as well. You have your two inputs. These are TRS combo jacks. You can use XLR or TRS in with an independent gain control of each. You can run a mic directly into one of these, or both of these, I guess. Use your gain control there to adjust that. It does have a linked output. This output is linked off of both of the inputs. So if you run a input into this, you can run an output here to another speaker or to a subwoofer, something like that. You have that option as well. On down at the bottom, you have your power switch and your standard IEC power cable in. Handles at both the top and the bottom. Venting at both the top and the bottom of the amplifier unit as well. You'll notice in the bottom left corner there's a screw missing. It actually has been cut off. Long story on that one. The ZLX series, they make a mounting bracket for it that mounts. You take off the handles here, both top and bottom, and the bracket bolts to both of those sections, and you can suspend these, you can fly these with the mounting bracket. I've done that many times. We have the mounting brackets. That's how that came to be. One of those screws seized up in there after we got some dirt and grime on it. We could not get that out, and then the head stripped out as well, so we ended up having to cut the screw off to get it out of there. Luckily, the bracket itself, the screws are not recessed into, so we could cut it off. Hated to have to do that, but eventually one day we will fix that. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. These speakers are used almost weekly anymore, so we just haven't had the time to take them down and really repair that yet. Other side, completely blank, just a standard side of the unit itself. These are a composite material. I don't know exactly what the composite is. It is a plastic fiberglass composite of some sort. I guess I could look that up, but I don't know exactly what it is. The amplifier itself is a 1,000 watt. It's a Class D amplifier, rated at 126 decibels max, and it is good. It is rated for 50 hertz up to 20 kilohertz. Believe it or not, for a 12-inch woofer, these actually have pretty good bass. I didn't expect that out of a smaller woofer size as opposed to like a 15 or so, but they actually have pretty good low end. The low end is not excessively boomy, which I did kind of think is the case with the ZLX-12Ps. I feel like the bass is a little much. You have a bigger woofer, but the tweeter is not any different in the 15Ps, which is one reason why I like the ZLX-12P a little bit better. It's not quite as boomy. The bass is a little tighter. I feel like it's an overall excellent sounding speaker. It is a 12-inch woofer and a 1.5-inch high-frequency titanium compression driver. And the unit itself weighs 34.5 pounds. So they're not super light, but they're not excessively heavy either. Alright, so here we're zoomed in a little bit on the control panel now that we've powered it up. You have two input level meters. These input level meters just have just a graphic display of the input level on each of the inputs. You also have your overall level up at the top. So if I rotate the rotary encoder here, this is a overall volume control of the speaker itself. You can take it all the way down until it's muted. Don't bump the camera there. All the way down until it's muted, and of course back up to 0 dB as well. You also have some amplification here, up to plus 10 dB. So to go through some of the menu items here, we'll go ahead and press the button in here. So on the top here we have the mode. This mode adjusts some of the EQ curves of the unit itself. So the music one obviously is meant for music. Live, be more for a live speaker environment. I noticed it does cut some of the bass, boost some of the mids for the live. Speech, even more so, a little more drastic on what it boosts and cuts there. Meant specifically for using this just for a speaker. And when I say speaker, a person speaking. Next mode is club mode. This mode boosts the bass quite a bit. I guess if you were using these without a subwoofer, the club mode would be a pretty good mode to use for DJing and so forth. And that's it. Those are the four modes this thing has. I have found that, you know, by default, the music mode is probably one of the best. It seems to be the most balanced, and it gives me the best sound out. I will mention right now that I'm not going to sit here and play this speaker for you and record it on a little microphone here and then try to tell you how good it sounds. I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly how these things sound. The best bet to know how these things sound are to maybe see if somebody has a little more professional recording of these online, but for the most part, you're really not going to be able to know exactly how these things sound until you go and hear one in person. So don't necessarily take my word for it. I'll just give you the best description I can of how they sound and why I bought them and why I use them. But for the most part, you know, I can't tell you exactly how these things sound different, because you're probably not going to be able to tell the different sounds of each of these modes unless you were here in person and listening to it with some music. So also, as you saw there, the display also dimmed down. That's a feature we'll touch at here in a second. So we'll go back into the menu here. The next tab is the location. So this has, I believe, 3 different location options: either pole, monitor, or bracket. Now, the location also affects the balance between the high frequency driver and the low frequency driver. So the pole is your more standard setup. It's imagining that this unit itself is being put up on a pole, and so it is sitting with a tweeter up top, woofer down bottom, and adjust the balance between them accordingly. The next mode is the monitor mode. This is if you were using it laying down as a stage monitor for monitoring of your vocals and things like that. So the monitor mode itself definitely does cut some of the bass, cuts some of the mids a little bit, makes it when it goes ahead and pre-selects an EQ curve that is best for a stage monitor for monitoring vocals with live mics and things like that. The monitor mode is an excellent location mode to help already preempt and get rid of some feedback. Third is bracket mode. I don't notice a big difference between bracket mode and pole mode. I do notice on bracket mode the tweeter is a little bit louder, so I'm guessing this is imagining that the unit itself is placed well above people. So the bracket mode is it can be useful depending on your situation. The next selections we have are the treble and bass. I was using these speakers this weekend without a subwoofer, so I did take the bass up plus 2 dB. But these are just basic dB adjustments of your unit itself, up to plus and minus 10 on either side. I typically leave these at 0 because I handle EQ elsewhere in my mixer and drive rack. But if you're running these standalone, you can adjust treble and bass to give you a little bit better balance. Next is a sub crossover. It just says sub here, so it's kind of confusing at first, but this is the crossover point. So I can take this to where this thing rolls off anything below 80 Hertz, so it only reproduces 80 and above. And I believe this also goes up to 100 and 120 as well. This also has preset EQ curves or crossover curves for the ELX-12P powered subwoofer. So if you're using the ELX-12P, you can select this, and it will go ahead and adjust the crossover curve specifically for that subwoofer. So if you own that, excellent little feature you have there. But that's it. If I'm running these with subwoofers, typically I leave this at 80, although I do handle crossover electronically through other equipment before it even gets to the speaker. But if I am running subs, I'll typically go ahead and select 80. That way I don't get any pops or anything low frequency come through on the speaker. The next one is your LED. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. You can change it to be on all the time when the unit's powered, to only light up when it is limiting, or you can turn it off. Those are the 3 selections for that. I typically leave it on. I like to know if my speakers are powered up or not. If I'm using them where the speakers are facing me for whatever reason and I can't see the displays on the back, I will change it to limit if I'm going to be running them really heavy. Next is the LCD dim. You saw earlier where the display dimmed down as I wasn't using it. This display is kind of bright, so if you're in a very dark environment and these speakers are kind of close to a wall, this LCD is bright enough to actually display a little bit of a blue glow on the wall behind them. So I always leave the LCD dim on, so that way after, I don't remember how many seconds it is, this LCD will dim down, and it's not quite as bright, not quite as obtrusive. You're you're not going to be seeing this bright blue glow behind anything. And now she's dim, as you saw there. Made it good timing there. Other than that, that is the last selection on here, other than the contrast of the display. This is just a contrast for this display itself. You can adjust it if you have a hard time seeing it. Honestly, right at 0 is excellent for all angle viewing. Never had a problem with that. You can also reset all the settings to defaults. You can pull up the info and it will tell you the firmware version that is built into the unit itself. And then your exit. Hit your exit, takes you right back out. So overall, ZLX-12P is an awesome, all-around, great DJ speaker. We've used these for more than just DJ events in general. I want to throw some clips up here of using them in the past. We've used them in a bracketed configuration up on truss for the Cluster Music Festival second stage last year. We had 4 of them up there. The video the way we had them arranged, because of the truss configurations, there was a little bit of comb filtering. We didn't have them quite as close together as we wanted to have them clustered on either side. But overall, they sounded awesome. They carried great. We were running them with 6 dual 18 subs below. So obviously we had a lot of bass. We never even ran these speakers up to limit at this festival, since it was 4 of them up there. It was so loud that, I mean, to run them at limit would have been painful. Even out across the field, 50, 60, 70, 80 yards away, the sound was clear, it was precise, and sounded great. We love these speakers. We would recommend them to anyone at any point in time if you were looking for a affordable 12-inch powered speaker to use. Some people are going to give me a hard time saying, oh yeah, powered speakers, passives are better. That's an opinion for you to choose. Passive speakers, you have some advantages. If the amp goes bad in a passive speaker, you can grab another amp, you can chain it to another speaker, great. Advantage to a powered speaker, you don't have to have an amp rack. You literally roll in with your speaker, amplifiers built into it, and you go. The ZLXs have been ultra reliable. We've never had any issues with them. They have always worked flawlessly. They have provided excellent sound at all point in times. They are self-limiting, self-protecting. If they get too hot, they'll shut down, or they don't shut down. They actually just back off. They dip the gain a little bit to prevent them from overheating. But overall, they are excellent speakers. We love them. We recommend them. And if you have any questions, I would love to answer. Hopefully here in a minute, I'll throw some more clips up. You can see them in action at some of our events. As always, like and subscribe. If you want to see more reviews, we have a lot more reviews coming down the line. We've got some other lighting equipment, some other sound equipment. some subwoofers, things like that we're going to review as well. And we hope you guys enjoy. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks.